Okay.
Okay, so we're broadcasting, recording now.
Yes, we are. Yes.
Okay. Now I can see Victor's name up here twice. Victor, you let us know when you can hear us.
And just to let attendees knowing, we're just waiting for one counselor to try logging in again. He's having difficulties with his connection.
Yeah, because it worked yesterday for him when we did the Zoom, our HR meeting.
Is Victor in the municipal office, Kathy?
No,
No.
no, it's not.
Oh, okay. I'll be glad to see the sun again. Seems like in a lot of cloudy days.
Yeah. It's shining here in Arden.
The weekend
Always
was
shines in
nice.
Arden.
That wouldn't be the result of something you might have been drinking over there, is it, Tom?
Oh, no.
Okay, Victor, can you hear us?
Oh,
He
he's
may
gone
be.
now. So that means he's logged out. He's probably trying to log in again.
Okay. We'll give him another couple of minutes and then we'll start and hope that he can get in as we get going through the meeting.
Hearing a bit of feedback there. I'm thinking it's maybe the closeness between Nikki and Elwin.
Okay.
Both muted right now.
Okay. I think we're going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. So it is 4:03 and Victor will join us as he can get in. The very first motion is approval of the agenda. I have a motion moved by Bill and seconded by Tom that the agenda for the regular council meeting held January the 12th, 2020 be approved as, are there amendments, Kathy?
No, Cindy had redone, she had sent it back out, so no,
Okay,
everybody
so-
has amended,
So as presented.
correct.
Now, can I ask staff to take off your video so I can just see the counselors when it comes to voting? Okay, thank you. Okay, all those in favor, let me see your hands. Okay, motion's carried.
I'm the only one that needs to stay on, so I can see
Yes,
what-
okay. Okay. I don't see Victor yet. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest on any item on tonight's agenda by any member of council and the general nature of that pecuniary interest? Seeing none, we'll ask Victor when he gets in before we proceed, just in case.
Mhm.
Okay. All right, so we'll move on to approval of the minutes. I have a motion moved by Sherry and seconded by Elwin that the minutes of the regular council meeting held December 22nd, 2020 be approved as presented. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. There's Victor back. Can you hear us, Victor?
Take him a second for his audio to connect.
Okay. Can you hear us, Victor? Okay, well, let's keep going. Victor, if you can hear us as soon as you can, let us know, okay? All right, mayor's remarks.
Sorry, I've sent a chat to him to ask if he can hear us.
Okay. Okay, mayor's remarks. Just a few. Hope everyone had a good rest over the holiday, because it certainly looks like 21 is going to be about as difficult as 20 was. Certainly COVID is not getting better right now, it's getting worse. Our community is still doing well, but we don't know how much longer that's going to last. The stay-at-home order today, I think, will help. I think most of our communities have done well to stay close to home, but certainly if there are people who haven't been staying close to home, now will certainly be the time, because they are going to ramp up enforcement of the rules, and there will be fines if people are seen getting together. So that's all I've got, other than we just keep plugging away and try to stay safe and keep our households as safe as possible. Nikki, do you have anything to add?
No, nothing to add.
Okay. All right, we'll move on. Does anyone else have anything to add? Hearing none.
Madam Mayor, I'll mention that we received a response this afternoon here, not long ago, is that the KFLNA Public Health Enforcement Unit, we're having a meeting with them at 8:30 tomorrow morning because of the new restrictions. So I'll be able to provide more of an update, and we'll probably have to have our community emergency control group meeting as well. And then the rest of the Frontenacs, we're going to, all of us as the Frontenacs, all the CAOs, we're going to have a Zoom meeting tomorrow afternoon to lay out our plan, our action plan for, we'll be all consistent across the board. So I'll keep everyone posted.
Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Yes, I think it'd be important if Kathy and if the emergency management group meet and they get information that might be important for all of councilors to be able to communicate to people that might be calling us for some kind of directions, that perhaps you should inform all of the councilors so that we'd be better prepared to answer some questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
So Bill, are you thinking about things about the office being closed and how to get service and that kind of stuff?
That's right. Or any other specific directions that are coming as a result of the shutdown that they're announced for tomorrow.
Yes.
Okay. And I would encourage people to listen to the 6 o'clock Kingston News, because Dr. Moore is on there almost every night giving what the state of affairs are and what we need to be doing.
Yes, and we also remember, Madam Mayor, we have a meeting with Dr. Moore at 12 noon as well tomorrow.
Yes.
So we have, so I have about 3 of them tomorrow, and then I will keep everyone updated and talk to Jamie in regards to the control group for sure.
Good, but we will touch points with councilors, especially when it comes to township stuff specifically.
Absolutely, because it will need to, because as of Thursday, that order, then we're ready to, they're enforcing it at that point.
There is still hope that our kids will go back to school since they are separating the hot spots from the rest of the province. So we'll see, fingers crossed. Sherry?
Yes, I just wanted to mention, Madam Mayor, at our school, we do have school to community students that are attending, only because it's very challenging to provide online learning for those students. So, so far that seems to be going well, and we're able to really socially distance. So,
oh, that's good.
Excellent. Good. Okay. All right. Are there any deferred items?
None.
Did Victor get in yet?
I see he's in there now.
Can you hear us, Victor?
Cindy might be working with him.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll move on. Our next item is Andy with Development Services. So I have a motion moved by Tom and seconded by Brent that council receive the construction details December 2020 report for information. Discussion. Bill?
Yes, is Andy on the line?
Yes, he is.
Okay, in your construction detail for December, you indicate the number of permits in December is 3, but down below, you mentioned that there are 2 residential new units and 2 new seasonal units, which would come, I assume would come to 4. That's probably just a clerical error, but I'm just wondering, what would your guess be in regard to how many permits would be a holdover that we would probably see in the first part of this year? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Through you, Madam Mayor, I'm just trying to think off the top of my head here. I know there's at least 2, if not 3, new homes that haven't started construction to date, but the permits are issued.
Okay. I guess the one thing from the Ford announcement today that needs to be explained in more detail is the non-essential construction. I'm not sure what that means.
I just received an email. I haven't had time to open it, but I'll probably have an answer for you tomorrow.
Okay. Okay. I'm thinking it might be back to where we were at the beginning, where unless it's relatives that work for you in the one household, you stop work. I don't know. Brent and then Tom.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Andy, thank you for the addition of those details, the breakdown by district. I found that pretty interesting. I know that the numbers don't necessarily differentiate between people getting a permit to renovate as opposed to build, but I think that if we look at the numbers, I think, and where they're falling, I think we can kind of read between the lines because, Kennebec is doing extremely well. I think probably a lot of it is being driven by seasonal. And Hinchinbrook is doing well. I think that's probably being driven a lot by permanent residents. I might be reading a little too much into it, but needless to say, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this information is very interesting because it's really giving us a picture as to where the development is occurring in the township. And then my takeaway from it is that all the parts of the township seem to be very active. There may be some that are more active than others, but there's certainly a lot of activity across the board. So thank you for providing that detail. It's really helpful.
You're welcome, Brett.
Okay, Tom?
Yep. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Tom.
Sorry, Andy. I was just going to reiterate what Councillor Cameron said. I wanted to thank him for that additional information. I find it very helpful. Thank you, Andy.
Yeah, I was quite surprised how close Kennebec and Hinchinbrook was.
With the numbers, eh? Bill?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Just to follow up through, Madam Mayor, to Andy, I think if you were actually to look at the geography of the different wards in Central Frontenac, you would find that Kennebec geographically is the largest, Hinchinbrook second largest. Also is actually the smallest geographic area, so opportunities for building in any form and shape probably relates directly to geography as much as anything. So just a comment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And certainly the building relates to the severances that have gone through the planning process as well.
Also, we got a lot of flat land here in Kennebec too.
With sun shining on it.
Okay, any other questions or comments on the motion to receive for information? Okay, all those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, next is the radon report. I have a motion moved by Nikki and seconded by Cindy. The council received the radon mitigation report as prepared by the Manager of Development Services dated January 12th, 2021 for information. and that the Development Services Manager is recommending that the quotation from Simon Air Quality for the installation of a radon mitigation system be accepted as the lowest quote. Now therefore be it resolved that council approve the recommendation of the Development Services Manager to accept the quotation from Simon Air Quality for a radon mitigation system for the municipal office in the amount of $14,620 plus HST, and further that the Development Service Manager be authorized to obtain a purchase order for the radon mitigation system. Discussion? Andy, this involves a membrane and a flue and a blower or something?
Basically what it is a 4-inch pipe that gets cored through the slab, and a fan is installed to create negative pressure under the slab, and it exhausts out through, it's going to exhaust out through the side of the building so that the radon gets extracted before it comes in the building.
Okay.
It's from the breakdown of uranium in the ground, and the levels do go up in the wintertime with the snow cover and the ice. It kind of seals the ground on the exterior of the building, and then it just finds the path of least resistance to come into your home or whatever the building may be.
Okay. Hey, Brent, you had your hand up. Go ahead, Brent.
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Just a question with regard to the system. Of course, we've been talking about down the road doing some potentially major changes to the municipal office, which would change the footprint, square footage. So with regard to the system that's being recommended, do we know if it's scalable? I guess what I'm asking is, if we put the system in and then we start doing some expansions, is there an opportunity for this system to be modified, or do we have to actually revisit the entire system down the road?
Through you, Madam Mayor, if we put an addition on the building, it would require, well, it could possibly require its own system. To mitigate the building we have now is going to require 2 separate systems because this building had been added to. Unless you put provisions, which might be possible to through the footings, you can create a vent through the footings that so it could draw from the new area. Also, the new building will have a poly put down before the slab is poured, and it will be poured on top of clean crushed stone that the air can travel through easier. Parts of this building is just sand underneath concrete, so it doesn't, it's harder, and you need a larger fan to pull the air through that. It's more difficult than through the clean stone.
New homes now have to have this system put in place. Is that true?
They need to. There's 3 options. One is to seal it out as best you can and then test your home after. So if you can seal it out, then that's the best way, because these fans have to run 24 hours a day. And they're not that noisy, but I'm sure you would hear it in your home. So the best approach is to seal it out to begin with, than to try and deal with it later.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Victor, can you hear us yet? Cindy, is Victor on with us, or?
His profile is showing up, but he hasn't responded to my private chats, and he hasn't responded to say he can hear. So I haven't received an email from him either. So I'm not sure
Okay,
His
all right.
studies.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Okay. Next, naming of a private lane. I have a motion moved by Elwin and seconded by Sherry. The council received the report entitled Naming of Private Lane, McCallan Lane, as prepared by the deputy clerk. And further that the bylaw be passed later in the meeting to amend bylaw 2002-125 to add McCallan to the schedule to said bylaw. Discussion. No discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Now we're at Public Works. Mr. Tyson. I have a motion moved by Tom and seconded by Bill that council receive the Public Works Activity Report as prepared by the Public Works Manager dated January 12th, 2021 for information. Almost said 2020. Discussion. Any questions or comments for Tyson?
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to commend Tyson and his crew on the good job they're doing on the roads this winter, but more importantly, being proactive. And I saw the men out there today taking down some of these dead trees that are along the roadway, which to me is very important because you'll get a windstorm and then they'll come out across the road. So I think that's a very good idea, Tyson, for you and your staff to be proactive and not wait for a windstorm. Good job.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, Steve's been doing a great job organizing those guys, and they're caught up right now in ways. So if you ever can get caught up, but yeah, they went out and removed some trees today that were the dangerous ones. Thank you.
Good. Bill?
Yes, to the three of Madam Mayor. Tyson, we've had a reasonably open winter so far. Have you been able to experience, does it appear as if that we might be having some savings somewhere along the line? I hate to say it too soon, a lot of winter ahead of us, but to this point, has it been a reasonably cost-saving winter compared to other years? Maybe you can't comment yet, but just from outside appearances.
Through you, Madam Mayor. There's not a lot of snow on the ground, but unfortunately we've had a lot of events. And so you put the same amount of salt and sand down, even if we get a dusting that ices the highway as we will, if we got 8 inches of snow that night. So it's been, there's no savings on salt and sand that are noticeable enough yet at this point. There's been also the way the ice froze to the back roads, there's some extra costs in ice blades on the graders. As you notice, some of the back roads have been nice and ice bladed, and then they're, even this week, it's melted through a little bit. But I would say that we are gonna probably, we're probably right on par with an average year at this point.
Okay.
I see
I think we
Victor's
may
already
now
up.
have Victor at the meeting. Victor, can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
We can sort of hear you, but not really well.
No, I can actually, if you can hear me, I'm.
Okay.
Through you, Madam
But
Mayor,
you-
I'd like to make one more comment just while Victor's getting set up there. The treasurer has notified us that we have had significant savings in overtime hours so far.
Good. Excellent. Okay. Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll call the vote on the motion to receive the report.
Sherry has her hand up.
Oh, Sherry, go ahead.
I also just wanted to say hats off to Tyson and Public Works, and I wanted to comment at how great the sidewalks look. It's nice to have those clear for pedestrians and lots of people walking their dogs, so very nice.
Thank you, Sherry. I appreciate it, and I appreciate your email this week. That's exciting about the sidewalk machine, and we're going to try to expand. We're going to ask in the budget for a little trailer, so we can try to expand. I don't want to make any promises yet, but we're going to try to expand to the other hamlets now that it's going pretty well in Charlotte Lake.
Excellent. Yeah. There are actually people who drive into the village to go walking on those sidewalks now. So that's great.
It's
It
nice to
gets
see
dark
our-
so early. Yeah.
Nice to see our investment in the village paying off.
Yes. Okay. All those in favor of the motion? Let me see your hands. Motion's carried. Okay. Next, I have a motion moved by Brent and seconded. I don't see Victor anymore, so seconded by Tom. Whereas the Amnesty Load Program has been operating for over 15 years, allowing residents to dispose of items free of charge. And whereas this program has had a large impact on the amount of waste received at the landfills, which is reducing the lifespan of the site. And whereas the Public Works Manager is recommending that the Amnesty Load Program be eliminated to allow a longer lifespan of the waste site. And whereas residents will continue to have the option to dispose of large items and mixed loads of waste anytime throughout the year by paying a small fee at the waste site. Now, therefore, it be it resolved that Council approve the recommendation of the Public Works Manager to eliminate the Amnesty Load Program starting in 2021. Discussion. Bill.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, I concur and agree with the direction we're going with in regard to the amnesty program. I'm on record of saying that I never agreed with the program. And the basis of my position has always been that we have a limited amount of space in our landfill sites. And once that space is used up, as anybody who's been around the council table for a few years would know that there has been no new landfill sites licensed in the province of Ontario for probably close to 20 years. And there may be some just recently I'm not aware of, but very few. And once our capacity is used up, we, the taxpayers of Central Frontenac, will be paying to ship our waste to some other site. And I would be interested to know what the annual cost to a community that lost all of their capacity and had to ship it out. I dare say it will be in the millions of dollars. So I am supporting this direction that staff is recommending to council because from a position that we have a very limited amount of space left and it is filling up very quickly. And I've already said what my reasoning are. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Tom?
Thank you, Your Worship. This subject has got to be one of my favorite subjects since I've been on council over the past 10 years. And every year that it comes up with our public works, I mean, I've argued against it, saying that we need to keep the amnesty because if you don't have the amnesty program, it's going to end up along the road. I disagree with Councillor MacDonald because the volume that we put in there, it's going to end up somewhere else. It's already here in Central Frontenac Township. But what I want to suggest here is that we defer this motion and set up an ad hoc committee to review this, because I think there's some other options here. I'd like to set up an ad hoc committee and include staff, 2 councillors, involve the public, get some public consultation, and come back to council in March or 1st of April, depending on the time schedule with the committee, and with a recommendation for either continuing or discontinuing this program. I think it's a valuable thing in the municipality, but I really think we haven't dug deep enough into this, whether we should discontinue it just carte blanche to like we are talking about today. I think there's other options and I'd like to look at those and bring a recommendation back to council.
The only concern with that is I believe this is coming to us at this time because there is a tag that goes out in our tax bills. Is that not right, Tyson?
Through you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, there is we do try to insert something into the tax bills. Now I've talked to Kathy and we probably could do this advertising just as well online, and we could, there's always another way. We can find another way. I did try to bring this to the meeting before Christmas, and it was just too jam-packed and got kind of pushed back to this meeting. But yeah, it's definitely crunch time if we want to make a decision on that, and we want to let the public know through the tax bill for sure.
Okay, Brent and then Cindy.
So I'm in a situation where all the time I've been on council, I've supported the amnesty load. And obviously for the reasons that Tom has outlined, but given how quickly our site at OSO filled up, and we did talk about the fact that I think at one point in time we said we had 3 years before we would be turning into a waste station, and that 3 years turned into about 1.5 years, and that concerns me greatly. So my views are sort of a hybrid of what councillors Dewey and MacDonald have said. I think that the arguments in favor of the amnesty load are strong, but I think that we also have a huge issue. So one thing that I might suggest, and it might not be a suggestion that finds favor with everybody because it's a compromise and it's not an either or. What if we said that in lieu of canceling the amnesty load, we adjusted the fees accordingly? We have a certain business model that brings in a certain amount of revenue. And that's based on, if I'm not mistaken, $40 for a load. Okay. So we're foregoing a certain amount of money, which is outlined in the report. What if we decided that we were going to make this change revenue neutral? So we could change the bottom, we wouldn't change the bottom line, but we would have an opportunity to lower the cost of dumping on these loads. People would have to pay. So you wouldn't be getting a free amnesty load, but you wouldn't be paying the $40 either. Now, I'm not sure exactly what number we would arrive at. And again, this might be a compromise that no one's happy with. Some people will say, no, pay the full rate. And some people say, no, maintain amnesty. But I'm just wondering if there is a way in which we can bring everybody together. So the people that I think in fairness depend upon the amnesty load and they don't abuse it would still have some reduced rate, but we would still not be creating a bigger problem in terms of waste. So I'm not sure if this is a direction that we can look at or something we can discuss. I don't know if this is something that can be done in the context of what Tom is suggesting, but I'd like to throw it out there.
Okay, Cindy?
Well, I have to.
Madam Mayor, can
Oh,
is it okay if I speak to that?
sure, go ahead and then
I'd
Cindy.
just like to throw my idea. I thought about that a lot, Brent. The people pay for convenience. So I think one reason to keep those fees up at $40 is because we're trying to divert waste. So if we say if you wanted to cut it in half even, and it was $20, it was only $20 just to take a truckload. I think that's right around the line where people are going to say, do I really feel like taking in half an hour and sorting out the recycling, sorting out the wood, sorting out the shingles, or do I want to throw it all in the back of the truck and just pay $20? So that's, I think by keeping the fees up, I think everybody needs to ask themselves, by creating this free day, do we really think that the appearance of our township is different from any of the other municipalities around us that don't provide this program? I think the people who are gonna, they're gonna look at the $40 fee and say, you know what, that's a couple hours of me working if I had to make $40. So I'm gonna sort the recycling best I can, and my truckload of garbage is gonna turn into 3 Central Frontenac bags that cost $3, and then a half ton truckload of recycling that can be sorted for free. That's where I stand on the fee, lowering the fees. I think it's just, yeah, well, I've said it all.
Okay, Cindy.
Well, I have to agree with Tom, because I think you've got the waste no matter which way you look at it. Either it's in your yard or it's at the waste site. And if you don't have a place for them and the convenience of this, people are just going to throw it. For example, I know Tom knows the Cranberry Lake Road is like a good dumping spot because it's quiet and nobody around, and they throw it over the bank. And I know the Henderson Road right now has 2 lawn chairs and something else sticking out of the snow that people have thrown out of their vehicles or whatever. So I think the harder you make it for people to get rid of things, the more they're going to throw stuff along the roads. And I think that a lot of the taxpayers feel that they don't get a lot of bang for their buck. And this is just a nice gesture for the township to do for them.
Okay, Tom, and then
Thank you,
Bill.
Your Worship. I might add, I had prepared a whole pile of comments that I was going to make, but then I thought about it for the last day and a half. And I've also received an email, and I had a phone call from residents in the area that do not agree with us discontinuing it. So I think there's a better way of handling this thing, and that's kind of what I would like to get an ad hoc committee together, look at a whole lot of different possibilities, and let's drill down a little bit and get the public involved in this thing, get some feedback, and then make a educated decision for council either later in March or maybe April. Or maybe we have to push it even further because of the COVID thing, who knows? But I think we got to be a little flexible this year.
Okay, does anyone else want to speak to the motion that we've read? Bill, sorry.
Yes, I'd just like to follow up on some of the comments, if I may, through Madam Mayor, is that the general public have no idea what the cost of running a landfill site is. The general public do not have any knowledge or information regarding what it costs to close a landfill site. They have no knowledge, unless they're in the business, of what it would cost to open a new site. So I think it's really responsible on our part to make sure that the capacity that we have presently lasts as long as possible. Now, do you think the public would be aware that this amnesty program has cost us over the last 5-6 years almost $200,000 in lost fees? And what would that do in regard to running the landfill site? And as far as refuse ending up along the edge of the road, that was happening when landfill sites were free and were open 24/7. There were people that still threw material and items along the Township Road, and along the K&P Trail was a favorite place down here in which people dump stuff. So I don't think any kind of legislation is going to be able to, legislate common sense anywhere, shape, or form. But what we have to do is the people have to realize that we're making a decision here to extend the life of our landfill sites so that we're not going to be spending millions and millions of dollars shipping our refuse to some other site, wherever, if any, we're actually able to find a site that would accept the refuse from here. I think the town of Napanee, even they have the Richmond landfill site, which is not very far away. Their cost they got a free period, but I think it's around $5 million a year. I could be corrected on that, for the town of Napanee to get rid of their own refuse. So that's just further comments through you, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and I see that Victor has joined us now. Can you hear us, Victor?
Yes, I can.
Okay, would you like to make a comment on the motion about amnesty loads?
Unfortunately, I've missed the previous comments. I'm very much on the fence, and I was hoping to hear both sides before I made a decision.
Okay,
So-
we've had discussion on deferring this motion and setting up an ad hoc committee that would include staff and maybe a couple councillors and some public to bring forward some different ideas. We've had support talked about for the motion as presented to cancel Amnesty Day. We've had a suggestion of changing the cost of a load to split it so that the dollars, we still get some dollars, but not the full $40 a load. Did I miss anything, folks? I think that was pretty much the discussions we've had. So where we're at right now, you want to make a comment, Victor?
Well, for me, it sounds like there are some other ideas out there, and perhaps they need to be more thoroughly explored. So the idea of setting up a committee to look at it, that appeals to me.
Okay. Okay, so process, we have a motion before us. Tom had mentioned a possible deferral, but if that's the case, then I need a mover and a seconder and for the deferral. And then if there is another motion to set up an ad hoc committee, that would need to come forward. Tyson?
Madam Mayor, just wanted to let you know that on this resolution, because both Brent and Tom have moved it, it
Yes.
does have an option there you can check off as a deferred. And then we do a separate motion can be done for the ad hoc committee.
Okay,
Okay,
okay. And Tyson, you wanted to say something?
Just before we start voting, I just wanted to speak to a couple of the comments as well. I won't take long. Tom, I agree with the committee, not for this amnesty program. I think this is a no-brainer right now. I think we need to look at our, do we make the decision now or later? Because if we continue the amnesty program, we're just going to fill the landfills and then we're going to be dealing with this in however many years. But I do agree with the committee, and I've already got the wheels going on that. We've talked to Bill Everett, a local contractor, and our lead hand wayside attendant, and mentioned it to a couple councilors about this committee just to discuss all types of waste and recycling issues. So I agree with that. Bill, thank you for your support. Brent, similar to Tom, I agree with the committee idea. Not lowering the costs just because of how I explained earlier. I just filling in Victor. And Cindy, we will pick up the chairs on Henderson Road.
Thank you.
That would make
Okay.
the chairman.
Okay, so the mover of the motion is Brent and Tom. And I guess what we're going to do is vote on a deferral of this motion. Is that right, Kathy?
correct.
Okay, so is there an appetite and support for deferring this motion? And I need to see your hands. Okay, motion's deferred. Okay, Kathy,
Yes.
can you put together a motion? Or maybe I can just say it in my head and you can write it.
Yeah, I've started, Madam Mayor, is that council set up an ad hoc committee to review the amnesty load program with members, I guess it would be with, how many? You want 2 members of council?
Yes, and
I'm sorry, I would suggest 2 members of council. I would also like to see 2 members of the public involved in this thing, and then staff members and
how
her worship.
How many public?
I would say we probably limit it to 2, maybe. I don't know what Tyson thinks, but I think we need to get the public involved, and probably we need to, well, I think this is be up to the committee, but I think we need to get some information from the rest of the public to send in comments, and then the committee can look at those and come out with, at the end of the day, come out with a good resolution to this situation.
I agree, Tom.
Tom, the only problem is how do you pick public to be involved? If you're going to take the time to advertise that there is this committee who's interested, interview possible interested public, and then choose people, you're talking a lot of time before the committee can actually start to work.
Well,
Maybe
Sorry.
it should be council and staff, and then make your minutes public and encourage people to read the minutes and comment on them before any decisions are made. Is
I'm
that,
okay with
is that a
that, but I have-
possibility?
I know one person in this area that would be interested. They actually, in an email, which I will forward to the committee, they've had some good ideas that they submitted in their email to me, and I will forward those on to the committee and Tyson. But I understand where you're coming from in that, but I mean, if I guess as a result of this conversation we're having now, the media will probably put this out. Maybe if any of the public feel so inclined to come forward, maybe they could do that by next week or something. I'm not sure.
Or you can certainly solicit comments and suggestions by email from the public that the
Yeah.
committee would take into account. Tyson?
I agree, Tom. And I just wanted to remind everybody that I'm just reporting based off costs and what's best for the taxpayers' dollar, what I think, and very open to feedback from the public. So anybody who's tuned in listening, feel free to leave us your comments, please.
Good.
Okay,
Well-
what council members are wanting to sit on this committee?
So Tom is one.
Well, I'll sit on it.
We shouldn't have two from Kennebec,
I
Cindy.
know, but Tom sits on a lot of council things.
What
but-
about Victor?
Victor?
If I can just make a comment, Madam Mayor.
Okay.
From what I heard from what Tyson was saying is he's looking for a broader committee that's going to look at waste management in total rather than just this particular issue. So I would suggest that we set up a waste management committee, and perhaps their first agenda item is going to be amnesty.
We had a waste management committee in the past, right? So
Correct, we
this
did.
is basically an ad
Yes.
hoc waste management committee that we're setting up.
That, through you, Madam Mayor, here, that's correct. But the main emphasis of the last Waste Management Committee was to try and set up a reuse center. And we
Right.
never got into the day-to-day operations of the landfill site. We felt that was under the purview of the Public Works Department. And we really didn't have any expertise in which to offer for that. I think a committee looking at amnesty would actually be able to take into consideration any public views on that. The day-to-day operation of the landfill site, I think, is pretty straightforward, and going forward with the rules and regulations around the Ministry of Environment, I don't think that we're going to go and make any changes in that area. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey,
Okay.
Madam Mayor, the topics that have been discussed so far for if we were to start a committee are waste diversion and other opportunities like that. That's what we've discussed so far with the members of the public and local contractors. So it's never been discussed to talk about it at Amnesty Day.
Okay. Brent?
If you could just simply say it's an ad hoc committee dealing with waste diversion and revenue.
Okay. Brent, would you want to sit on the committee?
I think unfortunately with economic development and a couple of other committee assignments, I'm not sure that I'd be able to put a lot into it at this moment. So I would defer. I mean, if push comes to shove and you need somebody, yes, but I think that there might be some other counselors who would be better suited to the role.
Okay. Okay. Who's putting their hands up?
Madam Mayor, Victor
Yes.
here.
Okay.
Yeah, I would offer to sit on that committee.
Okay. So Tom and Victor
Okay.
and staff. And they will receive comments from the public. And maybe after a few meetings, if you feel you need public reps, you can come back and we can pass a motion to add public representation if you don't get feedback from the public. Is that
Madam-
okay?
Yeah, Madam Mayor?
Yes.
Yeah, can I just make a comment here? Given what's happening with the COVID thing, I'm not so sure that we're going to have an opportunity or environment in where we can actually meet and be effective.
No, you'd have to do it through Zoom.
It would do it all through Zoom and sharing information and ascertaining information from other locations or other sources. Can I suggest that as much as I hate saying this, is that we continue the amnesty for 1 year, and during that 1 year, we look at all possibilities of possibly discontinuing it, but ascertain all of the information as to what this is going to cost us as a township once we have no capacity left, and the impact of what the amnesty day is having on the life of our landfill sites. So I'm throwing that out there as a suggestion. You know that right from day one, I've been against this for the reasons I've already spoken to, but under the circumstances, I could live with it going for 1 more year, which would give us a term in which to examine all other alternatives if they actually are out there.
The one thing I would say though, Bill, is there isn't anything wrong with a committee working through Zoom. The information can be emailed to people so they have it in front of them, agendas. I know it's not the greatest, but it's probably something we're going to be doing for another year. And I think postponing this another year, this is the year that we need to make the recommendations and have a decision for the sake of our landfills, regardless of what the decision is.
I agree. Okay.
We should deal with it instead of putting it off. Tom?
Yeah, you're right, Your Worship. We agreed to defer this, and that was one of the suggestions I had with our committee when we formed this committee, is that maybe we take a look at the amnesty period for this year in a slightly different format. But I think we need to have all hands on deck here and decide this, and then bring it back to council by the end of March, 1st of April, or whatever time period, or maybe we have to decide, like Bill was saying, to continue it. But I think let the committee take a look at it after we talk to Tyson and some of the other folks, and then come back with a recommendation.
Okay, Cindy?
Should Elwin and Nikki not be asked if they wanted to be on the committee? Because you just kind of jumped to Victor and asked if he wanted to be on the committee.
I didn't see any hands up except yours.
Yeah, well, he didn't have his hand up either when you asked him. So that's why I'm saying you didn't ask everyone.
Okay, everybody put up your hands who wants to be on this committee.
Well, you've already picked the committee.
No, nothing
There's no
is
there's no
voted on.
resolution passed. No, there's no resolution passed.
Just a point for the record, I did have my hand up.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah.
Cindy?
Okay, I'm happy.
Okay. Okay, people tell me who wants to sit on this committee.
Forget it.
I see Tom and Victor's hand. Okay, so that's what the motion is going to read.
Okay, I partly got it prepared, Madam Mayor, is that council set up an ad hoc committee to review waste diversion and revenue, and that the committee made up of the following two councillors, Tom Dewey and Victor Heese, along with staff. And that's as far as I've got. So I don't know what else you want to include on that.
Do we want to say something? And public input will be solicited by email?
Okay,
Yes, I guess so, through public work. I guess that should come through Public Works, I believe, or just through the township and forwarded on to Public Works. We're looking for any input but I think that we would probably like to get something out in the media and maybe on our website to later on, but I think that's up to the committee.
Okay.
I don't know if there's any interest in it, but one thing we could offer is sort of a virtual public forum or open house via Zoom, similar to what we're doing here. For any public who did want to make any comments, we could hold it virtually.
Yeah, like we do our planning stuff. Good. Okay, let's leave that up to the committee how they want to set that up.
sure.
But I think for now, we'll, in the motion or once
I'll
what's our
finish it up.
meetings?
Yeah, I'll finish it up,
Yeah,
Madam
but
Mayor, before the end of the meeting.
We need to put an email address in there so the public will know where to send their comments to. And I'm guessing that Tyson doesn't really want them all coming to his email at once. Maybe we could set up a separate waste discussion, waste comments email.
And we do
Anyway.
also have a general email set up for Central Frontenac.
That might be where to come.
Something, or do we not have I'm not sure, I'm not techie enough, but on our website, do we not have a kind of a mailbox that you can throw comments in there that we can retrieve?
It's under
right, Kathy, or?
Yeah, it's under the I believe is www.centralfrontenac.com. So I think there is something already set up, because Donna will look at that when she gets emails and then she sends them out to staff.
Anyway, there is going to be a method.
Mhm.
We'll put it all in a note and put it on the website so people know how to access the email for comments. Okay, so the motion that's before us is to set up an ad hoc committee with two counselors, Tom and Victor, and staff, and to receive public input via email.
Yes.
Okay, all right. All those in favor? I need to
Need
see
to know who
hands.
moved it. Sorry, Madam Mayor, who
Oh.
moved? We need a mover and a seconder for this motion.
Moved by Tom and seconded by, Who's got their hand up?
Victor.
Elwin.
Victor.
So moved by Tom, seconded by Elwin. All those in favor?
Yeah.
I need to see hands. Motion's carried, I think. Who's opposed? Let's
I'm
do it that
opposed.
way. Okay. Two opposed. Okay, motion's carried. Okay, that was a tough one. Next,
And
we
and
have
maybe
a
we
motion.
should, I'm sorry if I just may, should we not have a, sorry, your worship, but should we not have a date, or maybe we'll leave it up to the committee to report back to council by a certain date, whether that be the end of March or April, so there is some continuity in this.
I think you need to do what you need to do and bring us back a report when you're ready as soon as possible. I think that's
I like,
basically what we
like
said tonight.
good, I like it.
Okay, all
So
right.
it should be understood that there will be, at this point, by deferring this, there will be no, if there is a amnesty program continuing, there will be no information available to the public until Kathy can help me with this. I'm guessing March
Correct. That'd be right, Tyson.
through the tax bill, but we can
Okay.
advertise online.
And-
Yeah, we'd have to advertise because yes, the tax bills will be going out soon. So, and there would not be another one going out until June. So we'd have to do it via other ways, yes.
And one last comment.
Well,
just
and
so
my guess,
sorry.
go
I just
ahead, Tom.
One last comment. I just was wondering, Tyson, can we leave it up to you to contact Victor and I rather than till we appoint somebody that's going to be chair, to contact us and tee up a meeting whenever is convenient?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
And I do believe there will be a bit of a write-up in the paper since this was a very good discussion. And my guess is it will make the newspaper. If not, we'll make sure that we get it on the website. Okay, so we're going to move on. Next motion is bylaw. Moved by Cindy and seconded by Nikki that council receive the report entitled Bylaw and Policy Updates, Civic Addressing, Private Road / Island Naming and Entrance Permits, as prepared by the Public Works Manager for information. And further, that council agree to consolidate civic addressing, road and island naming with entrance permits and bring all within the preview of the Public Works Department. And further, that council pass a bylaw later in the meeting to update our civic addressing policy and consider the draft bylaws for road naming and entrance permit system and fee schedule, and said bylaws be brought back to council at a future meeting once comments are received. Discussion? Tom and then Bill?
The only question I had on that, I have no problem with it, except the fees that were listed in the report, we're increasing those fees, and I'm just wondering, how do they compare with other municipalities, Tyson? For the three areas that you're charging fees for in the
Through you,
report.
Madam Mayor, I believe that the purchasing and installation of civic address number sign is a little bit higher than our neighboring municipality, but the other two fees are lower. The fees, when you see just before someone asked this question, the purchase of replacement civic address number sign for $75, just to give some clarification on that. It's mostly man hours. The blade and the post themselves are fairly inexpensive, but it's the time it takes a worker to go out and back with a half ton.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Bill and then
Yes.
Brent.
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Tyson. In the road naming thing, first of all, I agree with this direction you're going in because it just makes a lot of sense to have this all under one department rather than several departments going out to the same location. In the road naming where the fee is put there, if there's more than one person that's on that road naming thing, how do you go about collecting the fee, the $400 that is included if there's multiple locations on that road? Is there I looked through most of the presentation, but I didn't see where you allocate the cost of that $400.
Just looking in the bylaw, it should be spelled out pretty easily in the bylaw, but Cindy might actually be able to jump in and help me with that one. as I look.
So I believe what is intended, if it's, is that the fee is paid by whomever is requesting the name change. So regardless of whether there's 2 people or 6 people on the lane, it's the person who wants the name lane that's responsible for the fee.
Okay,
Makes sense.
a follow-up, Madam Mayor.
Okay,
Is number 11 in the permit application conditions. It says the permit in process cannot be assigned or transferred from one owner to another. What would happen if, for some unknown reasons, the property was sold and there was a new owner? Are we going to recharge another fee for that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, we actually just came across that, and it's just as simple as doing a refund and then having the new owner pay the fee. It depends
Okay.
what stage of the application you're at. So that was a tough one, and I think we may have to check that because Cindy and I may have actually updated the bylaw, but not the permit form. But it depends what stage you're at. If you're further along, it is transferable. But if you're at, we just went through one recently where they hadn't started yet, so it's as easy as a refund, make the new people pay.
Okay, thank you.
okay, Brent.
Tyson, I agree with the general proposal. I don't have an issue with anything. I do have one concern, one caveat, and it's with regard to the entrance permits and a expiration date. On a base level, I have no problem with that. I think having these things extend out years and years is not helpful. There needs to be a clear time set. My concern is really with relation to where we are right now with COVID and just the fact that everyone's plans are being put in a tizzy. And I'm just wondering, if we bring in this bylaw as is, we're fixing it. And I know that you have put in it some sort of means by which you can approve an extension. But I'm wondering, while we're going into these lockdown measures and a lot of planned construction and a lot of activities with regard to these entrance permits are going to get kicked down the can. Is that something that we might want to consider phasing in at a later date once we've got COVID off the table and we don't have some sort of extemporaneous reason why people couldn't proceed in a timely fashion?
Through you, Madam Mayor, Brent, I can agree at how it could look. People could be concerned. I guess the way I thought of it was just we're going to be reasonable. In any COVID or not, in any circumstance, if young couples, young families building a house and run out of money and they want to do it, extend it to next year, that's an easy extension. That's easy for us to say, yeah, that's it says in the bylaw, the public works manager can, or his delegate can extend the application. It's just it's put in there for these cases, like it was mentioned in the report that there's some outstanding from 2016 still. And we're trying to eliminate that. So I think that it's just by being reasonable with the extensions. So anything COVID related, that's a no-brainer that we can extend it. But if you if other councilors would like, if I get direction to create a little more wording in there, we can mention something about COVID-19.
I mean, for the record, I think you're a reasonable guy, and I think that we do what we can to work with people, and we try not to be obstructionist. We don't want to stop people from moving and building in the township. So I do trust that wouldn't be necessary, but I'm glad that you've clarified that, because I think that a lot of people would be concerned that they would be having to run the clock when there are situations which are completely beyond their ability to control. So I thank.
Okay, through you, Madam Mayor, just to speak to that one more time quickly, maybe I'll try to list a couple examples of reasons for extensions. In brackets behind that comment or in the bylaw, we could say some examples, COVID-19, lack of funding or whatever. I can list some of that.
Okay, Bill.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, too. In the bylaw itself, there's number 16. We're talking about an administrative monetary penalty, an AMP. we actually adopted that option? Because I thought that was something we were investigating for to possibly apply. And if we are, I think this is the first time I've seen it. Can someone speak to that?
If I may, Madam Mayor, I think I can address that. That was added in with the anticipation of possibly having an AMP model in the future. It's put in there on an optional basis. We don't have to use that as our enforcement. But I know when we were reviewing and proposing our bylaws for the burn bylaw and the fireworks bylaw, our legal advice at that time added the AMP wording in so that it was in those bylaws if we did adopt that system. It's there. We have the option to use it. If we don't adopt that system, then we don't apply any monetary penalties through that, but it gives us the option down the road.
Okay.
And to answer your question, no, we haven't adopted that yet.
And it just means we don't have to go back and change all of our bylaws if we go that route.
Correct.
Okay.
That's
I'm
correct.
satisfied.
Okay,
That's-
Madam Mayor, who seconded that motion?
Nikki?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Nikki, go ahead. You're on mute. There we go.
Hopefully there's no feedback. Just a quick question, Tyson. It says that you will update 911 in Bell Canada and whatnot. How long will this take? I've had a resident that's approached me with the lane change, and they've had medical issues and the ambulance has not been able to find them or any nurses. So is this a quick process to update them now that we pass these bylaws, or is it can still be lengthy?
It's going to take some time to get them all up to speed. I can double check, but I think I'll have to talk to Cindy as well. We had a date, I know, for some of the civic addressings that we were trying to meet, but it's been extended due to COVID. Let me get back to you on that, Nikki.
Also too, yes, so to mention to Councillor Gowdy is I did send an email with your request on to Charlene Godfrey, because Charlene does, once we do, they give the civic a number, she does the updating and sends it out to 911. So I know she sent me an email back, but I haven't had a chance to review it yet but I will let you know for sure as well. I went that route.
Yeah, pretty important to get that information so that the 911 operators can send it out and the paramedics can find it. Yeah,
that's correct. So that's why I said, Charlene, I know she's working on that with the county and sends those out. So just hearing back from her as to timing for sure.
okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? If not, all those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. Sorry about that. Phone's just ringing and nobody to answer. Okay. Next, we are at vaccination rollout. I have a motion moved by Tom and seconded by Sherry that council receive the report regarding the vaccination rollout report as prepared by the CAO clerk for information, and further that the council of the Township of Central Frontenac request that the Kingston Health Science Center and Kingston, Frontenac, Lennox, and Addington Public Health work with the local municipalities to implement local options for the delivery of vaccinations to frontline workers and the community. And further, that council express our thanks to KHSC and the KFLNA Public Health for their leadership on COVID-19 vaccinations delivery and pledge our support for the program. So what's happening is basically the vaccinations are going to the hospitals, and workers have been told, long-term care workers, that they have to go to the hospital to get the vaccination. And what the counties are saying and what we're saying is people are very nervous about going to the hospital because of COVID. And if a paramedic or a nurse at a long-term care home could give the vaccination to those folks, there would be no problems and it would all be done. And the same with if a paramedic could come to a fire hall and vaccinate all of our frontline fire folks that go out to all of the medical calls. We could have vaccinations done very quickly. So this is what this motion is about, is to support the push for the Tyson Health Science Center to consider different ways of getting this vaccination out to folks. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Okay, committee reports. Have a motion moved by Cindy and seconded by Brent that council received the approved minutes from the CPAC meeting held October 26, 2020, and draft minutes from CPAC meeting held December 21st, 2020 for information. Any discussion? Bill?
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, and perhaps to Tyson. There were some discussions in regard to your second set of minutes there in regard to firefighters doing traffic control during an accident. I'm just wondering what the liability is, because I don't think that volunteer firefighters are trained in traffic control. And if in actual fact there was an accident and a court case, where would the township actually be in allowing this activity to actually be taking place? Because I think that traffic control falls under the policing contract, or not a non-contract police activity. Can anybody give me an update on that?
Through you, Madam Mayor, I do agree that just like Charlene and Kathy and I have been talking about how it makes more sense for either Public Works or OPP or together as a team do the traffic control. But as far as I'm not on the volunteer firefighter department, but as far as I know, they are trained in traffic control. I think they have basic traffic control training, as far as I know. But,
Yes, they are.
I agree. We are going to be having more meetings with Charlene about, or I guess it's not Charlene anymore, with the OPP about how we can get a better system set up for in an event where traffic control is needed and a road closure, especially.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, no other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion? Motion's carried. All right, correspondence moved by Elwin and seconded by Bill that the following correspondence be received for information, and it's 1 to 12. That was in your package. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Motion's carried. All right, there's no delegations.
No.
There's no public meeting. So we are at bylaws. I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Sherry that bylaw 2021-01, being a bylaw to amend bylaw 2002-125, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 12th day of January 2021. Discussion? All those in favor? Motion's carried. Moved by Bill and seconded by Tom that bylaw 2021-2, being a bylaw to update its policies and regulate civic addressing and to repeal bylaw 2001-109, be read a first, second, and third time and finally passed this 12th day of January 2021. Discussion?
If I may add a quick clarification on the wording of the bylaw, I noticed when I was printing the final version that there were 2 areas that I clarified, and the version that I've printed for signature will modify I made reference to increasing fees by COLA each year, and I had a wrong paragraph reference in that, so I've clarified that, and I've also added, that is paragraph 9, 10, and 11 is what was impacted there. And the final version of the bylaw also adds in paragraph 15 that there was a missing word there, that the Public Works manager may issue an order. The may was missing in the draft I provided earlier.
Okay.
And through you, Madam Mayor, I would just like to thank Cindy for all her hard work on these bylaws.
Yes, she does an excellent job on bylaws. It's that legal mind of hers.
That's right.
Only I
She's
could do
lost,
it more
she's
quickly.
lost a lot of, she's been losing a lot of sleep over this whole one about the civic addressing and getting all this stuff into order.
Good, good. Okay, all those in favor? Motion's carried. All right. Now, is there any notice of motions?
None.
Is there any giving of notice of motion?
No,
Is there any new or other business?
no, there is not.
Let's wave his
Okay,
hand there.
Bill is waving his
Oh.
hand.
Bill?
Through Madam Mayor, I'm just wondering, I know we all received this letter from Robert Oatway from Harrowsmith in regard to internet, high-speed internet in the area. Do we really need to take any position on this? Is there something that we should leave perhaps at the county and the Eastern Ontario,
Regional network, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be on the county agenda. I think South Frontenac have dealt with it, Kathy?
No, no, they have not.
They
They
haven't.
did not, no, they did not pass a resolution at all.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that I don't think there was an actual petition attached, but they're working on a petition. So when that petition comes, I think we should bring it before us. And certainly I intend to send along the recommendation in the letter that was sent in our first email to some members of parliament who have some money that they could put into solving our issues. But I think we should put this on the agenda for the next meeting to deal with it.
Yes,
Okay.
and Madam Mayor, if you can send a copy of that, because I did not receive it.
Yes,
Okay, so Madam Mayor, the position I'm taking is that as hard as we're working through the Eastern Ontario wardens to improve communications in Eastern Ontario, what the CRTC seems to have done is that they've allocated certain areas of the province to certain providers. And what's happening is that provider has an exclusive territory, and because nobody else is bidding on it, they're just providing the basic service. And I know that where our son is, that they can't get anything to speak of at all. So I think we should support it in a way. So,
well, and the problem is the way the grant programs that are out, everything's going to become piecemeal because it's not being done in a regional situation that will fix it from one boundary to the other. As the gentleman spoke, he's on one side of the line and his neighbors across the way get excellent service, but the provider won't come across that boundary, which is
Right.
another reason why we need to do this through the Eastern Ontario groups and the Southern Ontario groups. SWIFT is working up in Southern Ontario and East Eorn's working down here. It's just to get the government to see that that is how this needs to be approached and come up
Right.
with the funds to do it. So
good.
we'll bring that forward to the next meeting.
Thumbs up.
Okay. All right, so if there's
I'm
nothing else.
all for good internet. I'm getting cold here in the car.
Need to improve your lighting too, Victor.
Yeah,
He'll need
that's
a-
right.
He'll need a flashlight.
Okay, we have a motion to go into closed session. Cindy, you're going to send out the email to all of us. So we'll have it fresh on the top of our email pile.
Yes.
And then we'll go back in and then we have to come back into this meeting to finish off. All
Okay,
right, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, before I forget, Andy sent me an email in regards to the confirmation about the non-essential construction. He
Yes,
said, it looks like construction can continue on existing residential projects with an open permit. No new residential permits at this time, similar to what they did in March.
okay.
Okay,
So anything that's been permitted is going forward.
that's right, but there'll be no new residence
Excellent.
permits at
Does
this
that
time.
apply to all construction sites, so Kathy?
No, it says it's only dealing with existing residential projects with an open permit.
So it's
Doesn't say-
residential, not commercial.
That's right, it says residential.
Yeah.
That was the email that Andy had received.
They're called non-essential, right?
Yes.
If you're waiting for your home to be built, it could be kind of essential, but not for the next 28 days, I guess.
Yeah. What I will
So-
do is
Okay.
Andy has sent me the actual email too, and I'll flip it over to council so that you'll all have it.
Okay.
Okay?
So if you run out of firewood in a cold night, is that considered essential?
It is if it's your only source of heat.
Great.
Okay, I have a motion moved by Victor and seconded by Brent. The council move into closed session pursuant to section 239(2) to discuss matters relating to 1, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, section 239(2)(e). 2, a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board pursuant to section 239(2)(k) administrative services. All those in favor? Okay, motion's carried.
Who moved in second, please?
Victor and Brent.
And Brent.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we leave this meeting and find the closed session link.
Yeah, I sent out the link and I'll open up the meeting as soon as I close this one.
Okay.